It looks like Ford beat Jeep at their own game. I'll include a link to the Ford and Draper and the Jeep and Sandy's websites in the description down below, providing us with both these vehicles. Let's get right into the comparison. This week's giveaway highlight is a classic Corvette with a big block V8. If you're interested, use code BHC or click the link in the description down below or in the pinned comment. This will give you 4x bonus entries on any donation $25 or more. Under the hood of the Bronco is a turbo 2.7 liter V6 that goes through a 10-speed automatic. It puts out 330 horsepower and then 415 pound-feet of torque. With these 35s, you can expect to get high teens in terms of the fuel economy. The Jeep is powered by a turbo 2-liter 4-cylinder that goes through an 8-speed automatic. It puts out 270 horsepower, 295 pound-feet of torque. This one's got 37s, bigger tire. So with this, you can probably expect to get roughly high teens if you're lucky, maybe even less than that. If you're able to, I'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe. Both of these are very boxy. With the Bronco, you've got the completely blacked out front end, and this one being a Badlands Sasquatch. Yep, you've got a hardcore off-road bumper, recovery points. We also have fog lights. Now this Jeep build is based off of the Rubicon package. It does have an upgraded bumper, but the Rubicon still will have a steel bumper from the factory. A lot of them will also have a winch from the factory. Now that's something that isn't really available on the Bronco. That was on the Everglades for a minute though. So either way you look at it, the Jeep does have more front-end equipment available compared to the Bronco in the form of just a winch. Now, Broncos are being mass-produced with 35-inch tall tires, which I think is absolutely fantastic. Jeep, on the other hand, is kind of harder to get a hold of an extreme recon. You kind of have to do an aftermarket build like this to get bigger tires just because of availability. And speaking of availability, the Bronco has great shocks from the factory. You've got Bilstein shocks available. This one has the Haas Fox shocks. Whereas with Jeep, if you want to get good shocks, you have to go aftermarket. This one has the 8100 series Bilstein shocks that are part of the AEV Wrangler. Now the Bronco's body on frame with a solid axle in the back and independent suspension up front. The Wrangler is body on frame with solid axles front and rear. Now both the Bronco and the Wrangler stock have these spare tires mounted to the tailgate. This Wrangler has it mounted to the frame, part of the aftermarket kit. Now the Bronco is a bigger, wider vehicle, and so you do have more space in the cargo area. Now the Wrangler's not bad by any means, but with that tapered design, it definitely isn't as wide. And you know what, side by side, I think both of these vehicles look cool in their own right. Now in the back of the Wrangler, we'll kind of compare neat height and everything. A little bit tight, but we do have a little storage net. We've got some vents here in the rear, window controls, USB ports, and outlet. And this one has aftermarket seats, but you can get the Wrangler with leather seats, you can get it with cloth seats. There's lots of different options. And then you've got plenty of headroom with the boxy design. Now I will say the Bronco, you sit a little bit higher in the seats, so my knees aren't pushed up as much. I think it's a little bit more comfortable that way. And the Jeep had vents in the center, but if you get the newer Broncos, they also have vents in the center, which is really nice. The seats for the Bronco, so I don't really see cloth Broncos except for the Heritage Edition. I mean, you can get cloth seats in a Bronco, but most of the ones you'll see in dealer lots will have either leather or vinyl, which is really nice, whereas you'll see a lot of Jeeps with cloth seats, a lot fewer with leather. Anyways, boxy design, so good headroom. Now normally the Wrangler has 850 pounds of payload. This one's down to 620 because of the mods. And then you do have, again, nice front seats. You can get the manual or power. And then look at this, getting in, you gotta step up a bit, but you know, it's a tall vehicle. You've got a nice little gauge cluster there. Partially digital, partially analog. And this does come with some modern tech like adaptive cruise control. You also have a camera system with this. This one doesn't have the front camera, but has a backup. You can get a front. And then tons of physical controls. That's one thing I do love about the Wrangler is all the physical buttons with it. And this does have diff locks for the front and rear, sway bar disconnect, auxiliary switches. It's got a part-time four-wheel drive system with a 2-speed transfer case. And kind of a lot of physicality in that center section. We've kept pretty decent storage. And a lot of the trim, the Wrangler feels premium, feels kind of like tough as well. And then this is a convertible like every Wrangler ever. Bronco, on the other hand, does have a bit more payload compared to what you see with most Wranglers, so 946 on this one. And then with the Broncos, you'll see a lot more of them will have power seats like this one. The Wrangler, you can get power seats. I just don't see it as often in dealer lots, but just because of how dealers spec things. Now it's full digital. There's no analog with this. You do have features like cruise control with the Bronco, which is nice. And you have all the off-road tech. So the stabilizer bar disconnect, diff locks front and rear. This has a 360 camera versus just a front and rear if you get the loaded up Wrangler. And then dual zone climate controls with this, heated seats too. And then with this one, you have a part-time four-wheel drive system like the Wrangler, but this actually has four-wheel auto as well. And then the center console, kind of similar setup in terms of boxiness. Now the Bronco interior doesn't feel quite as high quality as the Wrangler. It feels a little bit cheaper, a little bit more plasticky. 6 auxiliary switches though, and then again it's a convertible like the Wrangler. Now when it comes to pricing, this Bronco is about $73,000, and that's the top of the Bronco lineup unless you go Raptor. Now with this Wrangler, I think the best comparison would have just been an Extreme Recon with this AEV kit, not the whole bumper kit and everything, but just the shocks and the springs and everything. That would set you back somewhere in the mid-70s, so a little bit more expensive than the Bronco, but you'd have a similar suspension setup to the Bronco at a slightly higher price point. So as always, we'll start here in the back so you guys can kind of see the front dash and everything, and also get an idea of Wrangler passenger space. It's actually not too bad for the passengers, and getting in and out. Well, if you don't have long legs like me, it's not the worst thing ever, but you gotta hop up a little bit. Now this one's built off of more of a, not like a true base model, but more of a baseline Rubicon. So you do have stuff like manual seats and everything. And they do re-gear these for the 37s, for those you're wondering. It's a 4.56 if I remember right. So it's like an Extreme Recon. And now with the Wranglers, you can even get a 4.88 axle ratio. I'm actually curious if this one has that. No, I don't see the 4.88 with it. I'm actually surprised with the Wranglers right now, because Jeep isn't really doing much so far for the new model year other than just basically straight carryover with everything. I thought they would kind of, I don't know, do some major updates, new powertrain, something, but basically just different color options available. 2.0 is kind of peaky. It's kind of peaky. Not bad by any means, but yeah, it just kind of jumps almost. That's the way I'd put it. But at least it's relatively smooth. Now the suspension is the highlight. This handles way better than a stock Wrangler. Like, it's still body and frame, it's still solid axle front and rear. Still lifted vehicle, but I mean, you can go around corners very quickly. It's got great control. The steering, you actually, like, the vehicle turns when you turn the steering. You actually have some level of control there. It's really nice. It's incredibly smooth too over the bumps. And you know, the torque, like I said, it's peaky, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. This thing really, like, you can really feel the suspension working. It's nice though. It kind of feels like Raptor-like in a way. And I've my 392 that has the suspension kit and everything, I've taken that off-road, and I mean, it's phenomenal. The control you get, the comfort that you get, and the clearance is obviously insane. Like, you can just crawl over everything, no problem, no questions asked. It really is impressive, the clearances this has. Yeah, I mean, it's not like the 2.0 is not bad, but yeah, every time I drive one of these Wranglers, I just go, you know what, it needs that Hurricane Inline 6. It really does. It would make such a big difference in a positive way. for this. So hopefully they figure something out. Maybe just throw a 5.7 in it. I don't know. They gotta do something other than this. How much gas do I have, by the way? Gotta make it back to the dealership. We're fine. 13 miles of range. We're good to go. So let me guys think about the whole AEV kit. And just remember, you can obviously get this. That's the JL370, and like I said, there's huge discounts on this one. And they're not from my understanding, they're not changing anything with this. They just released that. I reviewed it a few months ago. Can't remember the name of it, but they did like a special overland build. But either way, the point I'm trying to make here is you can get these parts a la carte. So if you just wanted 37s and great suspension, you can just buy the shocks, the steering stabilizer, the springs, like the whole lift kit thing, and then just throw 37s on it, and boom, you got a Wrangler that kind of handles like a Raptor. And for, you know, not dirt cheap, but I mean, it's not that expensive compared to most other lift kits and everything, especially for the quality you're getting. It's an absolute bargain. So here in the back of the Bronco, pretty cool setup. It's easy to get in and out of. I will say that even with the 35s, you don't really have to jump up. Oh, I guess I should probably have a seat a little bit more back for me. So, you know, Wrangler and Bronco, they have roughly the same space in the back. The Wrangler just pushes your knees up a little bit more than the Bronco. What I will say is the Bronco, when I say space, when you have the driver's seat back some, the Wrangler, you can't put the driver's seat back as far as with the Bronco. The Bronco like really lets you put the seat back, kind of like a, you know, 4Runner or Land Cruiser. Here's the Jeep, they kind of put you right against the steering wheel, which some of you might like. For me personally, I've got long legs, so I like to have a bit of space. Now I will say right off the bat, this engine is a lot smoother than the engine in the Jeep, so that's a big benefit with the Bronco. And I know this might seem like a weird comparison to people, like why don't you compare stock Jeep? Well, first off, finding an Extreme Recon is actually not that easy, sadly. And then, yeah, it's weird. It's like Jeep builds barely any of them, whereas like Ford's mass producing these Sasquatches. And then the other thing is, even if I had an Extreme Recon, I don't feel like it's that comparable with the suspension. When you have a Haas Bronco, it's just going to blow the Extreme Recon out of the water when it comes to suspension performance. So I feel like you really do have to do aftermarket with the Wrangler to get it competitive with the Bronco. But then obviously it makes it more expensive, and you still have, in my opinion, an inferior performing engine. Yeah, like look at this, so much torque. Smooth too. Now when it comes to noise, there's pros and cons to both of them. So what I'd say is with the Bronco, I think they've done a better job with the top in terms of the noise. The Wrangler though, you can get it with double pane windows now, so that kind of helps out with the tire noise a bit and just the noise from other cars. But they're both loud, they're both convertibles. It's the price you pay to have top-down fun. Just always be that way. So that Wrangler with the AEV suspension, with the 8100 series shocks, it's better than the Haas and the Bronco. It's got more travel. You can feel it driving it. And yeah, it's just, even though it has a solid front axle, it seems to handle just as well, if not even better, I would say. Yeah, it actually kind of handles, this has more body roll than that Jeep. So the Jeep handles better with that suspension. And yeah, it's more comfortable. But again, it's aftermarket. It's like you have to go aftermarket. Whereas, I mean, if we compared a stock Extreme Recon to this, it's, like I said, no comparison. The stock Extreme Recon is horrible. Tons of body roll, super stiff. Just not a good setup at all. Wow. I mean, it's got tons of torque. Like, the Jeep can't even compete. Not even in the same universe. Oh, we're in 4-wheel drive auto. Didn't even realize that. So here's my conclusion. If you don't like having to modify your vehicle, the Bronco has better kit right out of the box. Better suspension, better shocks. if you're okay with doing some mods, and I think that Jeeps are one of the easiest vehicles to modify, because if you don't know, solid axle vehicles are so easy to modify. It's independent suspension that's a lot harder to modify. So yeah, with the Jeep, I'm not scared. And there's tons of aftermarket support for Wranglers, obviously. So yeah, if you're willing to, you know, spend a little bit of money in mods, I think that suspension system, the Wrangler, blows the Bronco suspension system out of the water. I mean, it is so much better. It's quite impressive how well that Wrangler handles and everything. But then you don't have an engine. That's the one thing that's annoying, is it's like, unless you buy a 392, which is stupid expensive. So I think overall Ford just has better packaging right now. Jeep is falling behind. It's like, oh yeah, rock crawl's better. It's like, cool story, bro. Most people mall crawl, they don't rock crawl. So it rock crawls better, but it doesn't have as good of a setup right now. So even if Jeep doesn't change this, even if all they need to do is just offer a better engine, and then make sure the prices are reasonable enough to leave space for, and that's the thing Jeep needs to understand, is like, they're giving people crappy suspension, those Wranglers, so like you gotta leave some discount, some space for people to be able to put some mods into it to make it drive a bit better. But let me know which one you'd go for.